What's up, YouTube? This is Black Ace coming from the OververseSVE YouTube channel. Today we're going to give you a Dragoncraft deck list for budget builds. Dragoncraft, obviously, really strong class in this first set, which is Advent of Genesis. Very good card quality, even coming out of the box of the start deck. And honestly, there's not that much you really need to change from the starter deck, but you have a few cheap alternatives until you can get your hands on maybe cards like Forte, Zernitra, maybe even Lucifer if you decide to run that card. So let's get started. First, we got the Blazing Breath. It's a 3-of to me. It's just a quick play spell. Select an enemy follower on the field, deal it 2 damage. If Overflow is active for you, deal 4 instead. Pretty straightforward. Very good on just opening the card and passing turn, especially against those aggro decks that they're going to start throwing things out like Swordcraft Quick Blader or Maid Leader, Abysscraft with say. I don't know, Goblin or one of the many 1-drops that they run. So this is a good card to just kind of respond with and just sit on. And then, as it scales well into the later phases of the game because it deals 4 damage once you hit Overflow. And Overflow, obviously, when you're 7 play points, Dragon gets special effects on all their cards. That transitions into our next card, which is Dragon Newt Princess. So she's only really useful with Overflow. What she does is when you have Overflow, you choose an enemy and deal it 4 damage. So she's kind of like a Overflow Blazing Breath on a body, 2/3. She's pretty well statted even if you just throw her out to get some early damage in early game. But obviously you might want to hold on to her for the later phases of the game. Ideally, you don't want to really be opening with this card just because she's not very useful until the later phases of the game. But when you do get to that point where you can, start throwing her out and dealing a little bit more damage, that's where she's really starts to shine and, just pose as a cheap card to just throw out, deal some damage, pass turn, maybe get another body out, and just kind of sit on some play points, and you can respond with one of your quick play spells. So very good card. Shapeshifting Mage. So this is a gold from the set. The first set, what it does is it evolves for 1, and Fanfare if it overflows active for you. He gets 3 attack, 3 defense. So he becomes a 5/5 follower when the Overflow is active for you, but if not, then he evolves. He's a 2/2 right there, and his evolve gets a Sail and Bane. So if your opponent's throwing stuff out that can pose as a threat, and you need a way to kind of just get rid of it then and there, then this card is perfect. So we just run the 3 evolution thing cards for it as well because there's a lot more space, a lot less space to be taken up in the Evolve deck, and this is just one of the best cards in Dragon right now. So I would definitely say this is the 3-of. It's a pretty cheap card to get your hands onto. Very threatening card as well. You can always respond with something or just throw it out and be a 5/5 body and Overflow. So very good. Next we got Dragon Oracle because we love Shadowverse. All it does, increase your play points by 1, or you draw a card. So obviously you want to be, or early game, you want to be ramping up your play points as much as possible. This card makes this possible. So you really do want to see that by turn 2, hopefully, or a little bit before you get to Overflow, but if you can't, you can't, When you do get into Overflow, that's when you can start kind of flexing into the different plays you can make with this card. If you want to make, if you're not exactly there yet with the play points, you can always just use it to draw a card. It's just a 2 cost, so very good card. Very good card overall. Staple in Dragon. Comes in starter deck too. So now we have Aila. She comes in the set. She's a gold. She has a Sail and Last Words. She increases your play points by 1. So another card that lets you ramp up into your Overflow your 7 play points. Very good card to be played early game. Only drawback is that it is a last word, so if they do have a card that just banishes it, it can be a little bit problematic, because it's like, man, I just spent 3 play points on this card. Why did it do nothing? It does have to sit out on the board for maybe a turn, and your opponent's going to have to decide, what am I going to do with this deal? How do I deal with this card? And that actually starts to benefit you, the player, because you swing. You can either just go face. You can remove a card off the board, ramp yourself up a play point, or you can just kind of just leave it there. Your opponent's going to have to find a way to deal with it sooner or later. Most of the time, what I like to do with this card is just throw it out on the board and swing with it, go face, because then it's like, okay, well, unless I'm facing, say, Haven, maybe Rune, Earthright Rune, because those cards are the ones that are more likely to banish it with one of their spells. Like Rune has Price of Magic, so in that case, I would probably try and start hitting their followers, getting a trade going, and ramping myself up some play points. So overall, she's a pretty good card, and I would say she's good at 3 in this budget build for Dragoncraft. Now we have Dragon Warrior. So he comes in the starter deck. He evolves for 1 in his evolved form. He becomes a 4/4 up from the 3/3, and you just select a follower in the field, deal 3 damage. So very good control card. Obviously, you're going to have more space in the evolved deck, so being able to deal 3 constantly gives Dragon Warrior a lot of value to you, especially because you're going to try removing pesky followers off the board, and 3 damage is a lot for a lot more aggro base decks like Sword or Abyss. So overall, it's a very good card. Then we're running 3 Serpent Wrath. So what it does is you select an enemy follower in the field, and you deal it 5 damage. Overflow is active for you, draw a card. So if Overflow is active, draw a card. So the 5 damage is pretty big for Evolve currently, because a lot of cards are not going to survive that hit. For example, like Tsubaki for Sword. Who's another good target? Even cards in this deck. If you face another dragon deck, Shin Long, unless they evolve, that's going to be a 4. That's going to be 5 damage to a 4/5 ward. So overall, it's just a very good card to especially respond with on quick timing. Catch them off guard. When you use it in Overflow, this is where using Dragon Princess or something like maybe Aila just to throw out on the board, and you deal 5. You can respond if they try to swing at you with 5 damage to their card, and then it's like, okay, well, either if it's bigger, then it's going to trade if they decide to swing into it, and I get to cycle another card. So it's something that it's going to be, if your opponent sees you leaving up 3, they're most likely going to just have to play into that anyways. But it's a very good card to just have in the deck at no less than 3. It comes in the set too. It's a silver. And then we run 1 Path to Purgatory. It's a gold. Fanfare, draw 3 cards, and then deal 3 damage to your leader. If your life is 6 or less at the start of your end phase, you tap it, put it in the cemetery, and deal 6 to all your opponent's enemy followers. So honestly, I really do like this card, but I don't think I like it more than 1, just because it can start to take up space on the deck, and it's really easy to play or on the field, and it's really easy for your opponent to play around. Even in a more less budget build, this card I feel is a good one of, because you're going to start getting desperate to cycle again, and if your opponent notices that you're just putting yourself down so you can start drawing cards, it can be a tell that it's like, hey, this guy's kind of bricking. This guy's not really drawing into the pieces they need to be able to survive whatever onslaught that we got prepared for him in our hand. So decent card. Being able to just draw 3 is really nice, but I would just keep it at 1 personally. It's up to you, the player, if you want to run more. That's just my 2 cents. Then we have Dragon Guard. So this card is really good. Comes from the starter deck. It's a ward, and then Fanfare. If Overflow is active for you, you give him 2 attack, 2 defense. So he goes from a 4/5 to a 6/7. So a lot of the times when I use this card, I just play it out and pass turn because I'm like, unless they actually have me in lethal range, I don't need to ward up with it. And then it's a 6/7 beater, and they're gonna have to find a way to respond with it. Force them to use their resources. The card is very threatening, and especially when you hit Overflow, you can just throw this out. Say if you have nothing else you really want to play, you can just throw it out, and then if your opponent tries to respond with something, you can just use Serpent Wrath to deal with that. So overall, just one of my favorite cards in the deck. And I think it just be at 3 in this build. So next we're running the Sebring Dragon. What it does, it's a 4/4 bronze. If Overflow is active for you, you give it Storm. So pretty straightforward card. 4 cost is pretty affordable for Dragon, and much like Dragon Guard, you play for 4 during Overflow. You leave 3 up, and then you can leave Serpent Wrath to kind of protect it if it's getting attacked. And it's a pretty cheap alternative for Forte, because Forte is the one of the premier cards in Dragoncraft. So being able to have a card that kind of take your place and just be able to get a good 4 damage on them is pretty nice. Let's see. So we know we have Erd. So Erd is a personal choice of mine. I think is really good in the deck. She's a 4 cost. What she does, Fanfare, she select an enemy follower on the field and put in the owner's EX area. Evolves for 1, and then when she evolves, you select a card in your opponent's EX area and banish it. So a lot of the times you're going to be just using it to push and get rid of problem cards off the board, especially if they have problematic last words, such as Aila, right? So just being able to get that off. If you go against Abyss, for example, you can delay their Necrocharge 10 threshold as well, because you're banishing it instead of sending it to the cemetery. So it's just a really nice card overall to play in the deck. And it's, even if you do see both of them, you can do, say, just push the card off. Just push a card off the board. Say if you need to remove a blocker or something like that. Next, we have one of the best cards in Dragoncraft, Shin Long. Evolves for 2. It has Ward, and on play you draw 2 and then discard a card. So on the surface, it's just a really good card to just get some cycle in your deck. Yeah, you're going to discard a card, but not a lot of cards in the deck are useless outside of maybe a late game Aila, or maybe Oracle. So ideally, a lot of the times, if I'm already ramped up enough, I'm going to probably drop one of these. But otherwise, yeah, this is just a really good card overall. And then when he evolves, he's still a ward, and then you give your leader 5 health. So 5 health's a lot, right? So it's limited. It was limited in Japan for a reason. So yeah, just a really good card overall. I really like it. Next, we have the Wyvern Cavalier 2. What it does is it puts the top card in your deck into the EX area and reduces the cost of that card by 2. And Dragon, as you can see, has a lot of good cards, like I said. So really, she doesn't have bad targets. So for example, you put Dragon Oracle in the EX area with her effect, and then it's a free Oracle. You put Serpent Wrath, it's a 1 cost. You can actually respond with quick from the EX area. Really nice. Blazing Breath's free. Princess is free. You can probably plan around that and Overflow and get another body on the board. Reduces Fafnir by 2. So a lot of these cards, she just makes cheaper, and it's really nice to just kind of have a card like that, especially because it's very well statted at 5/5. So Next, we got the Dread Dragon. So it's a 7/7 follower, really good stats. What it does is you just choose a following field, deal 7 damage. So remember how I was talking about the 5 damage that Serpent Wrath does? Now we have that 7 damage that this card does, and it's on a body. Yes, it's a 7 cost, but getting rid of just, it gets rid of most targets in the game. So overall, I just really do like this card. At 2, it's a pretty good cheap alternative to take up a slot in the top end as well, and it can be problematic for your opponent to just remove on the board. So overall, I do really like this card. Next, we have Fafnir. What Fafnir does, you deal 5 damage to each follower on the field. So a pretty straightforward card. He's the boss card of the starter deck. You can probably tweak around the ratios if you do want to put this card at 3. He's a 7/8 follower as well, and he's very good against aggro decks that like to go wide because most things aren't surviving a 5 damage nuke that he is, and then he's just a 7/8 body that they're gonna have to answer to. So a lot of the decks, like maybe Sword, for example, just have a really hard time removing Fafnir off the board. And because once he gets there, they're gonna have to respond to it. Otherwise, it's 7 damage to the face, and that's a aggro deck versus a deck that kind of plays control oriented and has a few different finishers to kind of threaten the opponent. So overall, Fafnir is just a really good card for this deck, and I would not blame you if you wanted to flex it to 3. And lastly, we have Genesis Dragon. So it's just a 9-drop storm, 10/12 body. A lot of the times this card is used to put your opponent in bad situations or finish the game. Unfortunately, it's a huge commit, and there's not much you can really do to protect yourself if you choose to drop the card on the board. But if you see your opponent just low on play points, say they don't leave up maybe 4, then I would be more inclined to use it because that's 10 damage to the face unless they have like a blocker or something like that or a ward. Then you can still throw it down just to establish dominance, but that does leave them vulnerable to taking a little bit more damage if they do have a ward there. So overall, just a really strong card for Dragoncraft anyways, and yeah, it's a good way to finish games for you. So and it's a gold, pretty easy to get your hands on. So yeah, that is the deck. Hope you enjoyed it. And if you decide that you could probably build this, decide if you really do want to commit to Dragoncraft, then I would say you can go try and get Fortes or Nitras. Lucifer is pretty popular in deck builds as well. So just keep an eye out for cards like that if you do end up enjoying playing Dragoncraft. Other than that, thanks for watching the video. Like, comment, subscribe, and have a good one.